The aim of this video is to help you fit a rucksack. This might be a rucksack you've had for years that you've never been quite comfortable with, or to help you shop and buy a new one, hopefully with us. Our family and this shop have been doing this for years. I remember as a kid walking into a climb one day with my dad and he embarrassingly stopped some random walkers and adjusted their rucksack. We didn't even know them. I think they appreciated it. I think they thought he was a bit crazy, but he just couldn't help himself. He's too passionate about it. And we're all still like that now. Many people don't even realise that rucksacks come in different back lengths. Many times I walked over to this wall and said, would you like some help? And they went, no, it's fine, we'll just try them on. You explain there's different back lengths and they're sort of like shocked. Rucksacks need to be fitted properly, whether it's guided help in the shop or something like this helping you do it online. So we do a huge range of rucksacks, from tiny little ones that are built for running to huge expedition ones as well. And they all need to be fitted a little bit differently. I'm going to do a quick overview here, so take it with a pinch of salt. Now, first thing to think about when you're trying to fit a rucksack is don't instantly assume, oh, I'm tall, I need a big rucksack, or oh, I'm short, I need a short rucksack. Now, what you'll find is it's about the length of your back. So from your hips to your shoulders, you might have really long legs and a short back, or vice versa. Also, nearly all our sacks come in women's specific as well. Now, that's not just making them smaller. You'll find women's shoulders not quite as broad and quite as square, and often hips are a different shape as well. And so some of these may fit you better than a men's specific. So starting with a slightly smaller pack than normal, I'll show you one of these. This is an Aeon by Low Alpine. Now, even though these have got adjustable back lengths, don't get too held up on whether it fits what we call perfectly. It's quite a small bag, you can only have so much weight in it, and they're built for being sort of fast and nimble and light. So they're never going to sink onto your hips in the same way some of the bigger packs will talk you through. So with a pack like this, I find it really versatile. It's the sort of thing that you might go running, a bit of walking, maybe biking. It's quite a flexible back. You're never going to get all the weight through your hips like you will later in the bigger packs. So what you want to get from this is still try and get it on your hip bone, but be aware that the pack will sink below your shoulders if you're of a height of me. I'm 6'4" with quite a long back. Now, this doesn't mean you get too much weight on your shoulders still, because it's quite light, as I explained. This allows you to move much more quickly and sort of lift your head while you're doing climbing or running or cycling or something like that. Once you get into rucksack sizes of 30 litre upwards, you might well be carrying quite a lot more weight. So really want to get a lot more weight onto the hips. So there's a few really important things you need to do with rucksacks of this size. So first and foremost, find a couple of parts of your body. Now, this is always interesting. Around here, you should have your hip bone. I like to put my thumbs on the top of my hip bone. Now, everyone's lumps and bumps are different, so again, take all this with a pinch of salt. But I generally load it around here where the lump of my bone sticks out. What we want is the hip strap to be sitting nicely over the top of my hip bone there. That means it can take a lot of the weight. Now, when you're putting a rucksack on for the first time, I think it's best to have the shoulder straps really loose. So leave it so it's hanging right down. What you will find is most people put a rucksack on, hunk it really high, pull it really tight, and wonder why the hip belt's nowhere near the hips. It's right in the middle of their waist, not taking any weight. So loosen it right off so it can sink wherever, and always put the hip belt on first. With all of these fittings, make sure the bag is weighted as well. If you have nothing in it or just some of the stuffing in the shop floor, you'll find it aloft and you really can't get it to sit. So if you haven't got weight bags like we have in the shop, use something. Use what you'll be carrying, ropes or anything heavy you've got lying around, just to see how it works. And then pull your shoulder straps in. Don't pull it so tight it comes back off your hips. So you might find there's still a bit of slack in there. That's fine, it's more to stop it toppling over backwards. You'll find most of the weight is going through your hips, and this feels much more comfortable than taking all the burden on your shoulders. Now, chest or sternum straps. I really like these. I find that this just holds everything in place. It helps spread the load a bit more as well. The main importance of these is checking that the shoulder straps sit in the grooves of our shoulders. If they do that naturally anyway, then you might not always need this. If you're sliding off, make sure it stays done up. They can nearly always be adjusted up or down to make sure it's comfortable. So with a rucksack of sort of 30 to 40 litres, you'll quite often find that the shoulder straps will nicely curve around the shoulder like this, and the tension straps, which are these here, will just be sort of level with the shoulders, or sometimes, again, if you're tall like me, they'll be slightly down. Now again, in this sort of size, that's not too bad. When you go into bigger packs, you'll see in a sec, you definitely want them going up a bit higher. With the tension straps, I often find it's really nice to have them sort of taut, but not too tight. If you have it taut, it stops the swaying and the bagging of the pack and sort of wobbling side to side. If you pull it really tight, it can increase the amount of pressure on your shoulders. So it's about finding the right balance. So you've got all the weight coming through your hips, not swaying around too much, but also not pulling too tight on your shoulders. Packs of this sort of size often come in either adjustable back lengths or in different back lengths themselves. There's pros and cons for both of these options. If you have an adjustable back length, you can share it with a partner and you can often adjust it to fit it just right. But if you have different back lengths themselves, you'll often find you can actually get the best fit going. Right, so big packs. Now we're still talking about walking or expedition packs. This is anything from sort of 45 all the way up to 100 litres if you're going on a really big trip. This is probably the most important to get right because you're going to be carrying this for longer days and there's a lot more weight in there of course as well. Again, make sure you choose the right one, so whether it's the long back length or adjusted to the right length. And also, like I mentioned before, when fitting this, hip belt up first. Again, hugging the top of the hip bone with the loose shoulder straps. Now again, pull those in so they're snug but not overly tight. And do up and adjust the sternum strap if you need to. So, tension straps. These are one of the most important things on a big sack like this. They're your guide to see whether it's fitting you right, and they'll also give you lots of options. So as you can see here, the tension strap is going up gently from my shoulders at around 25 degrees. I reckon that's about perfect for a rucksack of this size. It's about 58 litres. So there's quite a lot of weight in here. If you've got that angle, that means that the weight in the sack is going down through the spine and the support of the rucksack into your hips and not pulling at your shoulders. Again, have this taut but not overly tight. You can loosen it, but when you do that, you will find the bag may swing around and bounce a bit more and nearly pull you back, but it will put more weight onto your hips. Pull it in too tight, and you'll find it'll V up off your shoulders here. Now what that does is it feels really secure, but I can feel a lot more pressure here and it's actually quite uncomfortable. I certainly wouldn't want to walk for long like this. The only time I think you'd ever do something like that is if you're going up a steep hill or maybe scrambling, and this isn't really the pack for it, but if you were doing that, you'd find yourself a lot more secure with no rocking. But then as soon as you're back to normal terrain and walking, loosen that off again so that it's nicely weighted and we're back to comfortable days walking. So when you've got a pack like this set up just right, with it coming just above your shoulders, etc., you can often find you can loosen your shoulder straps. And actually, there's next to no weight on my shoulders. Now I could actually walk along like this quite happily. It's really comfortable. Obviously it's a bit tippy, but that means all the load is going to the right place. So next up, climbing packs. It gets a little bit more complicated here because these can often have a lot of weight in them, but you really don't want that long back length because often you'll be wearing a helmet and climbing and you've got a harness on. So what back length do you go for? If you're buying an all-round rucksack that you want to take to the crag and also do multi-pitch routes, whether in summer or winter, you'll probably be looking at something between 35 up to 50 litres. Now the thing with that is you're still going to be carrying quite a load, whether it's a 3-hour walk into the Ben or carrying too much gear up to Stanage. You need to get some weight onto your hips. But if you have it too long in the back, so it's carrying a load really nicely like a walking pack, you'll find you'll hit your head with a helmet on, and you won't be able to move your arms and be nimble enough to actually do the climbing. So this is when you need to get a happy compromise, something that probably sits on your hips still, but slightly more weight on your shoulders. So a little bit less comfy for the walking, but that will allow you to hoik it up above the harness so you can actually still climb when you start getting to your route. Do bear in mind when you actually start climbing the rucksack like this, often most of the weight has come out, so it's your rope, your helmet, your harness, all your gear. So it will compress down and it won't be so important how well it fits. You just want to be able to cinch it down so it feels like there's nothing there. If you're buying a rucksack specifically for multi-pitch climbing, pretty much forget everything I've just taught you. You need it to sit really nice and high. You need to be able to get to your chalk bag and your harness and have no restrictions. These are obviously going to be smaller. You're not going to carry a big load with that, but you'll be free to move. And if you're buying a rucksack for simply cragging and you're never going to do any rock climbing with it on your back, just get something big and fit it like one of the big walking packs I showed you about. So that means tension straps up high and a good chunky hip belt will take all the weight. So many rucksacks will have an adjustable back length. Now that might not always be in this sort of system, but it's generally pretty similar. With this one, what we do is you put your hand down here and you break the Velcro. That allows you to slide the shoulder panel up a bit higher. Now lots of people get really worried that the Velcro is the thing actually taking the weight, and as soon as you load it, it might rip off. That's not actually true. All that allows is that you can then allow a bit more of this webbing out, which is the thing actually taking the load. Not only does this make the back length longer, but it also allows the straps to come down a bit further as well, because sometimes these buckles are digging under your armpit. That's a good sign that the bag is not the right fit for you. They really want to be coming a little bit further down and tucking nicely under your arms. So I hope you found that helpful. As ever, if you're having any trouble, get in touch with us via social media, email, phone call, however. If I see you on the hill and it's not fitting you just right, I'll try not to approach you and adjust your rucksack. Just make sure it fits perfectly.